First of all, I'm John, no joke. That's my name to make matters worse. I weigh 275 PBS and stand at 65 in. So everyone nicknames me Big John. You know, like that Jimmy Dean country song from the early 60s, though. I don't work in the mines. I don't spend my days constructing houses, so I've acquired strong muscles from lifting timber and nailing things together. I could have probably handled the imaginary John, but it would have been close. No, we don't use air hammers, because my boss takes pride in our work assuring each customer that every joint is made as if we were going to live in it ourselves. He likes to brag that our fingers have handled each and every nail in. The house does it make the house better crap. I don't know. I do know. People line up to have their houses built by us, and that keeps money in my pocket for the high-price crap. Juliet. That's my wife loves to show off to her friends. One final point about me that may help you understand later. Events. I've never been beaten at arm wrestling, and I've won a lot of money from fools who thought their grip was stronger than mine. Let me now tell you about Julie, who's been my lifelong companion since we first met 20 years ago. I was lost when I saw the small blonde girl for the first time. I started a campaign to persuade her to say I do, knowing that I had to have her trouble was she hung around with the in crowd, you know, the football jocks whose parents kept them in a new car every couple of years and supplied cash for them to take their dates to expensive places like clubbing over in Savannah. Now, before you pipe up about them not being able to get into a club younger than 18, grow up and get a life. When senator or legislator boys show up, the guy checking IDs doesn't see so good from the best they can tell every boy and girl in that party is well over 18. Anyway, Julie's main squeeze was one Stan Grubbs, better known around campus as Meatif. I have to explain why he was called Meat. You're too young to be reading this account of my life anyway, so close up and go back to playing ball like I said. Julie seemed completely awed by Stan, and I wouldn't have bet a plug nickel I'd ever have a chance with her. I didn't either, until she had finished college and returned home to find only us working-class nerds still around. I vividly recall my initial encounter with her in Tony's pharmacy. She had recently graduated and started working at our neighborhood bank as an assistant manager during her half-day off. She had stopped by Tony's where there was still a soda fountain to get a milkshake. Let me get that. Julie, I handed the clerk enough to cover both our shakes. She clearly had trouble remembering me. Oh no, don't tell me I never forget a face, she said, following me back to a booth, apparently still trying to place me. I know you were in my class, and judging from your size you must have played football, but I just can't. Don't worry about it. We never traveled in the same circles, and no, I didn't play football too. Busy studying at night and working after school to help Mom with the bills. John Turner, is it really you? Her face lit up like she was really glad to see me. You won't believe this, but up until our junior year, I had the biggest crush on you, of course. At that age, I didn't dare let on. And besides, you hardly paid any attention to little old me. I didn't know what to say. I just stared at this Nicole Kidman look-alike, confessing she was once interested in me. I couldn't believe it, but seeing Herring Finger Bear, I wasn't dumb enough to miss this chance. Dance now. Maybe I could take you to the dance at the American Legion hut next Friday night. I thought I'd fall off the bench when she accepted. From that first dance we were inseparable, and 9 months later, I married the most beautiful girl in the state. No make that the nation, at least in my eyes. Our new home was situated just beyond the town boundaries, sandwiched between 10 acres of heavily forested terrain, and accessible only by driving across what appeared to be a wagon track from SC-61. You wouldn't imagine a house existed back there if you didn't know it was there. Salesmen never disturbed us, and our 2 children and their dogs could run around freely without any worries at all. The only danger would be snakes, and as long as the German pointer was with them, no snake had better show its hide any other varmint, either 2- or 4-legged, would find himself on the business end of a pair of pearly sharp teeth belonging to Bruno, our black lab brought while lacrosse that would protect the kids with his life. Yes, sir, I had it all. A wife I dearly loved and who was crazy about me, a couple of kids anyone could be proud of, and between the 2 of us, money was no problem. The one thing I had worried about when we first married, I'd finally been able to forget about. Yeah, I know I got you wondering, so I won't try to hide it any longer. You see that old saying about telling how much a man's packing? By looking at the size of his hands and feet is a bunch of crap, as I told you. I'm a big man, bigger than the usual guy. But my package is just normal. A shade over 6 in with a gland about 1 and 1 or 2 in across. I haven't seen many others since I wasn't a jock or in the service, but from what I could read, I was just about average, maybe a little over. But not much. For the first few years of our marriage, I was concerned about how I measured up, so to speak, since I knew Julie had dated a guy named Meat. She did her best, of course, to reassure me that it truly knew how to use the gifts God had given me. I did read a lot of material on the subject of pleasing women. It's true that she has enjoyed practically every time we've shared a kiss, if not she was a superior actress to Nicole Kidman, with whom she had a striking resemblance. Okay now, you know I'm a big rugged guy, but I'm also kind-hearted to a fault. I've gotten into the habit of letting Julie have just about anything she wanted. If I happened to say no to some request, her tears always changed my mind. I couldn't stand seeing a woman cry. I guess that came from all the times I saw Mama crying. I'm obviously also an idiot. When it comes to recognizing real love, I never had the slightest inkling Julie was unsatisfied with our life. Not until that fateful night back in 2011. As usual, I intended to go out to Nick's bar with my buddies, where we'd spend the hours between knocking off time and midnight, drinking beer, playing pool, and just shooting the breeze in general. That's what I planned to do. That's what Julie expected me to do. But it wasn't what I did. Instead, I got to thinking about that sweet woman I had waiting at home, and after only a little better than an hour, it was just getting dark. I told the gang B and headed home now. I've already told you about the road leading to the front of our house, but I didn't mention the back road, the one that led by the barn and stables. It wasn't any better, but I usually took it so I could stop by and make sure the animals were taken care of, since the kids were at the Grands for the weekend. I didn't know if Julie would remember. I need not have worried. My little sweetheart had everything under control, so I parked at the barn and walked onto the house. Julie always gets sore if I track dirt through the house, so we have a bench on the back porch where I take off my work boots and grab the bedroom slippers that were always waiting there. For me, it was an early autumn night, and Julie had the windows up, trying to save on air conditioning costs, so the only thing separating me from our den was 10 ft of space and a screen wire. I could see what was happening in the den just as well, as if I'd been sitting inside, but since I was sitting in the dark, no one inside could see me. I hadn't really looked inside until I heard a man's voice say, "You sure your husband isn't coming home anytime soon?" "Relax," Julie answered. "John won't be back until Nick's closes at midnight. Until then, we have the place to ourselves, and I'm yours to do with as you please." With those words, my world ended. Some would think I'm a wimp or maybe crazy, and I won't argue either. But something I can't explain got a hold of me, and I found myself acting in a way I never dreamed I'd act. Like I said before, I'd read stories on the internet about husbands who watch their wives and get a kick out of it, but I never thought I'd be one of those. Well, I'm not exactly one of them. Usually those husbands get excited and jack off as they watch. All I did was silently cry, like a baby, as I watched my world go down the drain. Sure, I could have burst in and kick Stan's ass and maybe beat upon Julie a bit. But to what end? This washer-old flame who was back in our lives, and I knew if I stopped it now, they'd just do it at another time in another place. And that would probably be a place where I couldn't get the cell phone pictures I'd need in the divorce. Julie and Stan were sitting on the sofa facing me, so I had a perfect view as they kissed. I got some great shots of him getting intimate with my wife. I could see the big one that gave him the nickname Meat, really. I don't know how else to describe it. I thought she always refused to give me that kind of attention, saying it was nasty. I continued to watch and snap pictures of the "Hoxit baby. You got me so hot, I just got to plant this thing as deep as I can get it." He said I managed to get a few good snapshots of it in various positions at that point. I figured I had enough pictures and was about to leave them to their pleasures when Stan made the fatal mistake. Like many men, he just couldn't keep his mouth shut and accept what had been offered. Instead, he had to brag a bit. "You said mine was the best rod you ever had. Did you mean it?" "Yeah, baby. I meant everywhere that thing reaches. Places that haven't been experienced since high school." I could tell by his expression those words pleased him. "What about Big John? His isn't as big as mine. Honey, not even close. Don't get me wrong, he does a good job. But there's a big difference between riding in a Volkswagen and a Corvette. Compared to you and him." Julie got hold of a towel that she must have brought in earlier and gave herself a quick wash. "You still good for round 2. They started again. I was surprised that Julie went along with him when He started trash talking about me and how I wasn't man enough to keep my woman.